in the Zoom, or can you? There you go.
Looks like it. Yeah. Okay. All right. And then here we go. We're going live on Facebook. So I'll let you know as soon as that's good. And then we'll just dive in. All
Sounds
right.
good.
Beautiful. Here we go. All right. Wonderful. Hello. Welcome, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Tonight we've got a special guest with us, Lexi Wright, and we are going to be diving into the fascinating topic of, perimenopausal hormones, metabolism, and cortisol. But thank you so much for joining us tonight, Lexi. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, and hopefully, I can give you guys some information to take away and learn from.
Right. No, that would be fantastic. Thanks for making time. I appreciate it. So Lexi, how did you get into the space of working with women that are in the perimenopausal state?
So obviously, I myself am in menopause, so I'm sure I'm similar to a lot of people in this group where I, spent my 30s and 40s dieting like crazy and on the yo-yo dieting cycle where, I'd lose some pounds, gain it back, lose some pounds, gain it back. And so once I entered the CrossFit space, I actually worked with a nutrition coach. And so she gave me some better knowledge around, fueling your body, understanding, what you actually need in order to feel good and perform well, whatever that might be. So that was kind of my first lead in and how I got into the nutrition space, obviously, as a coach. And then, the other thing is that I traveled a lot for work when I was in my 30s and 40s. So navigating that was a big struggle, obviously, because you're eating out all the time. And so I really had to be diligent about my food choices. And then I also found out at that time I was wheat intolerant. So, that come with its own challenges, obviously. So I had some gut health things that obviously didn't help me out. But obviously my passion for just helping people in general, but also having a realistic approach that we're all people, we all like to enjoy the foods that we love. And a restrictive approach is not something that we can do long term. And so I really promote a lifestyle change. It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change.
Right.
So that's kind of over encompassing.
Right, right. Yeah, for sure. I'm so glad you mentioned the whole part about it being a lifestyle change and we're not just, promoting another diet or just another way of eating. It needs to become something that is totally sustainable. So you were into CrossFit too. Are you still doing CrossFit?
So now I actually have, in the last 3 years, I've really backed off. So now I'm doing more, once COVID hit, we built our own home gym. I have some of the things that I need, obviously, to do CrossFit workouts, but I was finding that it was really hard on my central nervous system as I got older. So now one, maybe 2 days a week, but now I do primarily strength training. So.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, that's fair. And you're right. The CrossFit is so hard on the central nervous system as we get older, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, but so can I've seen, just a lot of resistance training, usually paired with a lot of cardio or running specifically, that can also just really beat up the central nervous system and kind of work against women in this stage of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't build the muscle that we need. And so, I would say that lots of women are doing like HIIT and boot camp style workouts and are basically ending up skinny fat, not building any muscle and seeing the body composition changes that they want. And so really that resistance training is really, really, really important. And a lot more important as we get older to understand that we need it for bone density. We need it for because our muscle is decreasing on a rapidly as we get older. So we want to be able to maintain as much muscle for both our metabolism, but also for being strong and not, breaking bones and that type of thing as we get older.
Right. Yeah, 100%. That's one thing I've really been trying to, make a point of lately is how important the resistance training is, in preventing the osteoporosis and the weak bones that we get as we tend to get older.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So, you're working in the space now, helping women, that were in similar situations to you. As you've gone through this process, what have you found that ties, the menopausal hormones and the metabolism together?
Yeah, so when it comes to menopause and hormones, I find that probably the biggest thing is stress. And so stress and the hormone cortisol really ties into the functioning of our metabolism, and our insulin levels, which we end up with that belly fat, obviously. But then also I really find that, stress paired with proper sleep are two things that are so important in this stage. And it's the two of the things that really honestly get missed a lot when it comes to you know metabolism and hormones in general. So obviously food and the amount of movement we get in also are two big factors. The type of foods we're eating, obviously eating enough protein, not eating too much on the way of starchy carbs. And I'm not saying no carbs at all. That's not what I'm saying here, but most people way overeat on the starch, not eating enough vegetables, not eating enough protein. So those two things are really, really important when it comes to making sure that our metabolism is working, because we know that protein, especially, and fiber keep us full longer, but also are harder to digest. So they keep our metabolism going, right? So those two things are super important when it comes to that. But understanding, obviously, that cortisol, so high stress, poor sleep, also causes issues with hunger hormones, because you know what it's like when we don't get a good night's sleep and the next day all you want to do is eat in sight. So understanding that those two things are very, very important as well. So, and then of course movement. So, getting in steps, and I know a lot of people have desk jobs. You're in the same situation, I'm sure, as I am, where we sit on our butts most of the day. So we need to get in movement in order to keep our metabolism going and, to burn more calories throughout the day. So,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Like we totally were not meant to just, like you said, sit all day long. So
mhm.
as we can get out and walk, I personally bought one of those walking pads to go under my desk, and that's helped tremendously. But,
Yeah.
if that's not always available to everyone, using your lunch break to take a walk, or even something we've done with a lot of people is, encourage them to just take a 5-minute break and do some kind of movement. Like maybe you cannot leave your office space or whatever, but do something, do some squats, do some push-ups,
Yeah.
something. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have some people that have joined us on Facebook. So welcome, ladies. If you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. I can see it on my phone, so we'll make sure that we get those answered for you. Um, Going back to what you said in the beginning about sleep and stress, like those really are two of, I think, the most foundational pieces. And like you said, they get missed a lot. And I think for a lot of women at this stage, they're not sleeping. Like it is so hard to sleep because of the change in the hormones. So do you have anything that you recommend to clients that can help improve the quality of sleep?
Yeah. So, one thing that I use with a lot of my clients is, especially if they're like waking up in the middle of the night, per se, like, and just not able to go back to sleep. A lot of times, like hot flashes, that type of thing. So I do use snacks an hour and a half before bed. So a slow digesting carbohydrate paired with a fat or a protein. So that could look like, popcorn with some meat sticks. It could look like Greek yogurt with some granola or some oatmeal. It could look like a piece of toast with peanut butter, so just something small. It doesn't have to be huge, and something that's obviously slower digesting so it doesn't spike. So fruit is not the best scenario where this comes in. Like berries are not terrible, but like bananas and apples, we shouldn't be eating those because they're just going to be, faster digesting and going to spike our blood sugar, which we don't want. The other thing is really paying attention to making sure that you have good sleep habits as far as like turning electronics off before you go to, within an hour or so before going to bed. Using practices to like de-stress, like maybe you're reading for a bit before you go to bed, those types of things. Obviously, there's always the option of supplements, but usually food can help in a lot of ways. And so I find that people that, for example, I have, if I have a client that's really not sleeping well, typically it's carbohydrate related in general. And I even find that with hot flashes a lot. So making sure that they're eating enough carbohydrates. And I know all women are scared of carbohydrates, but they're not, you shouldn't be scared of them. They are obviously very, very helpful when it comes to both our energy levels, but also our cortisol levels and managing cortisol levels. So, and then the other thing is that if you typically are a hot flush person, there's like some tactics like having a cooler shower before you go to bed. Obviously making sure that you're in a cool environment in your house when you're sleeping, loose clothes, all those types of things. So those are just some basic ones that I can give you. But those are kind of the main ones that we focus on to start with. And then we can kind of go down the supplement rabbit hole if we need to. But I prefer to try to navigate those things with food and proper habits before we go delving into that.
Right, absolutely. That's exactly what we do too, is that because there's so much that you can change positively with balanced nutrition and with, having a good sleep routine.
Yeah, and another thing that actually a few of my clients have been using lately that have really worked for them in their hot flashes is electrolytes. So
Mm-hmm.
just having electrolytes later in the day or throughout the day seems to be working for them. So
Yeah, and that actually has seemed to help too with having that extreme urgency that they need to go to the bathroom. And I
yeah.
really think that's, by process of not being dehydrated all day long, then you're not, just chugging water and chugging water. You're actually hydrating your body so that urgency can kind of go away.
Yeah.
Um, Christy did ask, what is the best way to reduce or deal with stress?
So there's a few different things, but you know what? There's a lot of simple things you can do. So let's just say, there's simple things like, okay, if we're going to the gym the next morning, can we lay our clothes out at night? You know, are we having to make lunch for our kids and our husband, and we're doing it in the morning and we're rushing, rushing, rushing before we have to get to work? Can we do some of that at night? So there's simple things like that that maybe you're making your life a little bit harder than it needs to be. And all of those things add up, right? So just those small little things become a bigger encompassing stress picture, right? But when it comes to stress, like things like yoga, meditation, walking is by far one of the most underrated things that people can do for stress, and just like unplugging, walking, getting outside, getting fresh air, getting sunlight. And then obviously like doing things that you enjoy. So like I always say when you pick things, a lot of people are like, well, um, I'm gonna do all this like extra cardio or whatever so I can get my cardio in, plus my walking, plus my strength training. Well, instead of doing that extra cardio, why don't you pick something you enjoy, like hiking or biking, or, so things that are less stressful and that you actually enjoy. So I think a lot of it is about enjoyment too, but also giving yourself the space to set time away from the things that are stressing you out as well. Maybe that's only 10 minutes, but 10 minutes is better than no minutes, right? And so You know, a lot of people say, well, you shouldn't be using workouts as a distressor, but sometimes that's the only time you have to yourself, right? So maybe that is a de-stressor for you, right? So there's just things that you have to figure out, where can I fit this in? And can I, you know, get away, if it, you know, if you've got kids or you've got work or whatever that looks like. Maybe it means going for a 5 minute walk at lunch at work, you know. So simple little things like that. It doesn't have to be like a big grand gesture. And I think that that's the big mistake that everybody makes, is they think that it needs to be like this big thing in order to make an impact. But in all honesty, just some small tactical things are going to be just as helpful. And maybe reading in a chair for 10 minutes in a quiet space is your de-stressor, you know? So you kind of have to find what it works best for you. But those are just some suggestions that, you know, I give my clients. Obviously, meditation, not everybody's about meditation. I'll be honest. I struggle to meditate myself. So that's not a de-stressor for me, because I can't shut my brain down, you know? So it's about finding the thing that works for you, really.
Right. No, that's so true. And a lot of people we've talked to also struggle with that whole meditation piece. And in that case, what I found is that generally some mindfulness practices can be super useful. Like, um, for instance, like I'm sure you walk through things with your clients where you know you're working on the mindfulness with eating and really being present at the table and choosing your food and feeling the food and tasting the food. But you can apply that anywhere to any space that you're in. And if you give yourself even 2 to 3 minutes just to be really present in your body in the space that you're in, it can really work to very quickly de-escalate any cortisol that you might feel like is risen, because you're breathing, you're aware, and you're being present right now. So it can really help to dial that stress down.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, when you mentioned the eating part, like you see so many people like eating on the run, and that's the worst thing we can do. Sitting it down, like you can't, your body can't rest, and it can't digest when you're standing. You need to be sitting and let it, you know, really focus on your eating. So, I mean, those are just simple things too, like you mentioned. So,
Yeah, no, you made a really good point. So we have the two different sides to our nervous system, right? We have the fight or flight, or we have the rest and the digest. And like you said, we can't get into that rest and digest, which is where we want our body to be at if we're eating on the go, if we're constantly stressed, if we're constantly doing. So if you want to see that more favorable balance, we need to promote more activities that are going to get us into that rest space.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was a really good question. Thank you, Christy. So if anyone else has questions, we have some more ladies that have joined us. Please go ahead and drop them in the chat. We'll make sure we get them answered. Um, so I know we've covered a little bit on cortisol, a little bit on the hormones. What have you seen that slows down metabolism at this stage?
The movement piece is huge. Not getting enough movement in. I find that for any of my clients that can't get in over, you know, that 7,000 steps, they really, really, really struggle. So the movement piece is huge. Obviously, yeah, the stress is always going to be a stressor too. But you know, that, and then just eating the proper kinds of food as well, right? So that protein piece and the fiber piece, those two things are really, really, really important. So and then consistency. So, you know, a typical thing, you know, you might see when somebody who's not coaching, or somebody who's trying to do it on their own, you know, they might eat, you know, perfect throughout the week, but then on the weekend they just blow the crap up, right? So you know, they might be eating say 1,600 during the week, and then on the weekend they're eating 2,500. So really your body doesn't understand what the heck is going on, right? And so then it's just going to hold on to that, right? Like it's holding on because it's thinking, well, I don't know, like, am I supposed to be eating here? Am I supposed to be eating here? Right. So I find that. And then the other thing that is really, really a big stressor in menopause or perimenopause is alcohol. And you know, I'm sure nobody wants to hear it, but basically, you know, the amount of time that it takes for our body to get rid of and detoxify from drinking alcohol. And I'm not saying that you can't drink, that's not what I'm saying, but recognize that when you're consuming alcohol, outside of the fact that it, makes our hunger cues much bigger, both that night and the next day, it also shuts our body down from actually burning any calories in that time frame, right? Or burning any fat in that time frame. So it's not prioritizing fat burning when you're drinking alcohol. So if you're teetotaling it, a glass of wine a night, then you need to dial it back and try to, put it in a window that's shorter, 1 or 2 days, and really think about what your priorities are. And honestly, we know that it affects sleep too. So those are kind of the main things. But I would say, movement and food are the big ticket items when it comes to metabolism. I think those are the big things. And then obviously any of the stressors that you're putting on your body.
Right, right, absolutely. So when someone comes in and you're pretty certain that they have, a slower metabolism, what are like some steps that you put them through to start bringing up metabolism function?
Yeah, so basically, when a client comes to me or somebody comes to me, I always have them track their food for a period of time, and eat normally. So understanding how much you're actually consuming before you want some advice or some, coaching, whatever that might look like. So understanding where you're actually eating, and that means tracking on the weekends too, not just tracking during the week, so we get a big over encompassing picture of what you're actually consuming, both food wise, but also how many calories. And then from there, depending on how many calories they're eating, if they're eating very low, then my program, we basically go through what I call a reverse process where we bring their calories slowly up to what I feel their maintenance calories might be. And I mean, honestly, the majority of the clients that I work with are in this scenario. I have very few that actually come to me eating 1,800 to 2,000 calories on a regular basis. So, you know, getting their eating patterns in check, because eating 3 balanced meals a day, really having set meal times so your body understands like when you're eating, when you should be eating breakfast every morning. So, within an hour and a half of getting up, so that you're getting enough protein in throughout the day, balancing blood sugar throughout the day. And then obviously, through that reverse process, being able to eat as many calories as you possibly can. Like that's the ultimate goal, right? And be able to still change your body composition, but also lose weight. So that's kind of the over encompassing, really focusing on foundational habits, though. Like those are the big ticket items that are good, that you need to have before you can progress to the next step, which might be a fat loss phase. If have a significant amount of weight to lose, then you might be rotating between a reverse stage and a fat loss stage where you're cutting calories. But once you've been through a reverse stage, then you have actually some calories to work with. If you're coming in at 1,300 calories, there's no place to cut you. Like there's no place, and you're going to feel like garbage. And most women, I find, is that when they come to me, they're lacking energy, they're exhausted, they don't even want to go to the gym because they can't even fathom doing a workout. They're crabby with their husbands and their kids. Um, and so, realistically, we want your body to be feeling its ultimate best before we put you in a cutting phase, right? And so
Right.
a lot of people find that a little bit tough to kind of swallow, but the long game is what is going to get you sustainable weight loss. And so those are kind of the big encompassing things that are going to be important, making sure that you build out the foundation. So, I always say if you build a house and it doesn't have a proper foundation, it is going to fall down, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
So we do not want the foundation to fall down, and we also want our metabolism working at at optimal. So the more food we can eat, and build our metabolism up, the better off we're going to be.
Oh, 100%. Like everything you said is so spot on with how we work through things. It just really, really
Yeah.
is. And it's so encouraging to know that other people are working the exact same way, because that's really the only way you can fix it. Like like you said,
Yeah.
if you come in eating 12 and 1300 calories, what are we supposed to do? Take you to 700? And then what are you going to do? Well, number one, you'll do it for a while, but then you won't be compliant and you'll feel like crap, and then you'll have more problems. So
Yeah.
that's not the way to go.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, a lot of people don't understand that a basic, basal metabolic rate, like just for laying down,
Mhm.
doing absolutely nothing,
Right,
we need most people, like the lowest you probably be is like 1300 calories. And
right,
most people are closer to 1500. And here we are eating 1200, and you're not even helping your organs function.
right.
So this is like a big thing where women have really, and I mean, I was just as guilty as everybody else. It's just having the knowledge, right? So
Right.
understanding and understanding how to really fuel your body. And I think that's the
Mhm.
big thing is when people start working with us and start doing a reverse and understanding how good you can feel and how
Right.
much food you can eat, it's empowering, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a wonderful feeling to be able to take control over your health and how your body feels and how it responds, and have energy left over to actually, do a better job about caring for the people that we care about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the big thing is a lot of women are like, well, well, I got to take my care of my kids. Well, here's a bit of a newsflash, guys. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your kids, and you're not going to be around long enough to take care of them. So, make yourself a priority. It's just like when you get on an airplane, what do they tell you? Put on your mask first before you put on your kid's mask. Same thing.
Yeah,
Absolutely the same thing.
yeah, absolutely. That's such a good analogy. I love that. Someone else said that. I was at a meeting a couple weeks ago and someone else said that. Put your own mask on first. I was like, oh, I know this. I so know this. But I think we forget, and it's good to have those reminders from time to time.
For sure.
All right, let's see. I'm going to ask one more time here online. Ladies that are watching, if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. We'll make sure we get those answered tonight. Um, Lexi, was there anything else you wanted to add? Anything we didn't cover? Something we left out?
I think so. I think the big thing is that trusting the process and being patient are two things that are, I know, really hard to do sometimes. But it sounds like what Clarissa's doing is exactly pretty much the same as what I'm doing. And we've worked with enough women to understand and know what you guys need, but also remember that we can give you all the information and we can coach you as much as possible, but you have to put in the work.
Mm,
And I think that a lot of people, we're in that stage of life or day and age right now where instant gratification is such a big thing. And, with social media and everything else. And so, people are like, well, I just want to, lose the weight and get it off but they don't want to consider how they're going to actually keep it off long term. And that is the big thing. So I think it's really important to remember that patience is important, and also recognize that there's more than the number on the scale. So recognizing that, feeling having great energy, feeling like you can get out of bed in the morning, feeling stronger in the gym, your clothes fitting better, just having clearer skin, those are all just as big a deal as what that number on the scale says. And I think a lot of people get caught up with, oh, the scale's not moving, the scale's not moving, the scale's not moving. And I had to have this conversation with a client the other day because honestly, she's kind of at her goal weight and she's like, well, I want to lose some more weight. And I said, but do you?
mhm.
she actually wants to look better. So that doesn't relate to the number on the scale because she wants to build more muscle so she can see her muscle, right? So I think it's really important to get clear with what your goals really are and understand that the number on the scale isn't the most important for sure.
Right. No, it's not. Like, we are not a number by any means, and it shouldn't make or break our day depending on whatever data that the scale tells us.
Yeah. And there's so many things when we're at this stage of our lives, whether it's from your 40s until through your 50s,
Mhm.
like weight fluctuation is a real thing.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
seen clients up and down 5 to 7 pounds in a week.
Hmm.
Like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, overnight even. It's crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think it's important to really like not focus on that and really focus on the journey, really like focus on what other goals you can kind of set forth for yourself and setting some other goals outside of just that number.
Right. No, that's such a good point. I like to remind them as well that your kids aren't going to remember how much you weighed, but they're going to
No.
remember if you obsessed over your weight. And that, I don't know about you, but that's not a legacy I want to leave my kids.
Oh, exactly. And the other thing is they're gonna remember if you were able to do things with them, right?
Oh, yeah,
So,
absolutely.
and the number on the scale doesn't dictate that. It's how strong and healthy you are, right? So I think that's the bigger thing, right? We wanna be strong and healthy for ourselves, but also for our families.
Right. Absolutely. 100%. I'm not seeing any other questions come through, but thank you so much for your time tonight. I think that's an excellent place to leave this conversation. If
Absolutely.
women had questions specifically that they wanted to ask you, Lexi, where could they find you on social media or email or?
Yeah. So my email is Lexi at timeforhealth.ca. And on social media, I'm on both Facebook and Instagram, Lexi Wright Nutrition. So LEXIWRIGHT Nutrition.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight, Lexi. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing
Absolutely.
such valuable information with our community. I'm sure that, the women will continue to get some use out of that, even, through the replay.
Great. All right. Thank you very much. And thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.